John Dingus on January the 21st, 1978. Nine.
Yes, sir.
The orange jump over.
I'm very young, right? Very young. A whole 30 years old. I want you to hear this life story of mine, and I want you to pick up some of these little parts, because you're only going to hear them one time from me. And you're going to have to badger other people to get it. Like my name. Here it comes. My name is James and Earl Johnny Dingus. I was born in Llewellyn, Kentucky on August 26, 1948. Llewellyn, Kentucky is a big town of maybe 200 people in a mining. They had a store and a post office. Right now there's nothing left but the post office. My mother was Fleta Dingus, with James Arthur Dingus as my father. Between the ages of 1 and 3, which I cannot remember, my father left, and they got a divorce. My mother remarried a Kenneth Myers when I was about 3 years old. When I refer to my dad now, it will be Kenneth Myers, because he is my dad, the way I feel. Okay, my dad was a taxi driver at this time, and then after my mom and dad got married, they moved to Tennessee, where at the age of 3, I was with him. And he became a truck driver, and he traveled quite a bit. So I started school in Tennessee, and about halfway through kindergarten, we moved to Wisconsin. So I went to kindergarten in Wisconsin. 6 or 7 months later, if I remember right, it's kind of tough for me to remember way back in, we moved back to Tennessee. And then I started school in Tennessee in the 1st grade. I happened to be a very bright student in Tennessee. I made all straight A's in 1st grade. Reason being, Wisconsin's a year ahead. What Wisconsin teaches their kindergarten people, Tennessee's teaching them in 1st grade. So I had to jump on them. From Tennessee, we moved to Illinois. I lived with my grandparents and my mom while my dad was in the Army. And after my dad come back, we moved from Illinois to Tennessee. And he was still a truck driver. And then he got a job with a man named M.L. Wilkerson. From here, we went to Florida. And all this time, every time we go from state to state, I go into school to school, remember this, because I'm getting a lot of education. And from Florida, we stayed there about 6 months, then went back to Tennessee. From Tennessee, I went to Illinois. See how I went. I come to live with my grandparents. My mom at this time felt that my education was being very neglected, because it was. They'd go to work, both of them worked. I'd stay home, I wouldn't go to school, because I was always the last one out. And this hurts. If you look back on it, I mean, now as a kid you'll say, oh wow, I skipped school today, really got away with something. If you look back on it, as I do, this cost me tremendously. I could have been a B student instead of an average run-of-the-mill student. And all this time, I never had a thing to do with church. All this time, I missed quite a bit. But, if you don't know it, you don't know what you're missing if you've never been there. So after I moved to Illinois and stayed with my grandparents, I started 7th grade. During the summers, I was invited to play softball on a church team. There's one stipulation: you've got to go to church. I'd never been to church, and I like to play ball, so I decided, okay, I would join. It was an RA team, Royal Ambassadors, but to me that was just a ball team. I didn't know what I'm talking about. But I'd have to go to church at least once a month, so I'd make it once a month. Church, not Sunday school, church. Come in and say, here I am, coach. And if he wasn't looking, I'd get out. But that's the only contact I had with church until I met Deline. I met Deline just around 1966, just before graduation, I believe it was. And, she'd come up from Kentucky to see her brother, Donald. and her other brother Larry, I think, lived up here at that time. And she looked pretty good to me from where I was sitting. So I went out and talked to her. But after that, we had a pretty good relationship. She told me bye and went back to Kentucky. And I'd asked her to stay. She was still quite young, and so was I. 'Cause I just graduated. But I went to work. I graduated from East Peoria High School in '66, and I went to work for a trucking company called Drum Transport. I was an accountant. Drum hauls, or did haul, bulk tank liquors, okay? I'm still staying away from church, as you can see, even though Delane has knocked on the door and said, she's introduced me to what church is. Delane had then come back from Kentucky and got me to go to church a couple of times. So, I was having a little trouble with my dad and my life. So I got to work, at Caterpillar in August of '66. In February of '67, I went in the Army. I was one of these hotshot volunteers. Excuse me. So I went in the Army, still having a relationship of the church as being distant to me. I went in the Army. I went to Germany, and from Germany I come back to Washington State. At this time, Delane had agreed to marry me, so I got to leave, and we got married. And from there, we moved to Washington State. In Washington State, I was still, far away from church, but Delane wasn't. She had contacted a couple of churches who lived around, churches there, and the pastors there, and they came to visit us. And she would go every Sunday. I'd stay home. And finally, I guess just her going and making me feel bad, as she talked to him about it, she would get me to go. I went with her, 4, 5, 6, 7 times while we was in Washington State. And then, while I was also in Washington, I went back to Germany for 2 months, and then came back to Washington. From there, we moved back. She moved back here to Illinois, but I went to Vietnam. Now, I think my life really changed when I went into Vietnam. I wanted to go for the sole purpose of killing. All right? The reason being, I had quite a few friends. Excuse me. I had quite a few friends that got hurt. And my idea was revenge. I don't know, when I was in Vietnam, something happened. I started listening to the chaplain there, and I think, your prayers back here did it. So when I got out of the service, I was still a hardcore guy. I'd seen a lot of stuff, done a lot of stuff. But with the help of Delane, Gilbert King, and everybody in this church, I judged you. I watched you. And you showed me what God did for you. And in June 1973, I was saved. I've tried to live a good Christian life, but I have slipped. I have moved back and not done exactly right. But I did learn that Christ will save you. He will forgive your sins. He will take care of you, just as he says he will in his Bible. And I'd like for you to pray for me that I continue to strive for Christ. Because I'm not one of your stronger Christians. I'm still learning. And I have a tendency to go back the wrong way. And I ask you to pray for me Thank you.